The sky over planet Zalora was red and cloudy. The wind carried the sounds of distant roars. No one walked near the jungle. No one dared. Everyone in the alien village of Navarra stayed close to their homes. They knew what lived in the forest age. Beasts with sharp claws, glowing eyes, and no fear. The worst of them all was the razor claw. Fast, strong, and smart. It could smell fear, and it never missed its prey. But today, something strange happened. A loud sound came from the sky. A ship, small and black, fell through the clouds and landed near the jungle. The villagers watched in silence, hiding behind their homes. Who would land in such a dangerous place? From the smoke, a tall figure stepped out. It was not an alien, it was a human. Liari, a young alien girl with green skin and bright eyes, watched from behind a stone wall. She had never seen a real human before, only pictures. He wore a dark jacket, had short brown hair, and carried no weapon, no gun, no shield, nothing. He just looked at the jungle like he was going for a walk. He's going to die. Someone whispered behind her. Liari didn't answer. She felt the same. No one entered the jungle and came back. But the human did something strange. He took a deep breath, looked at the trees, and walked in. Calm, slow, like he knew what he was doing. Hours passed. Night came. The sounds from the jungle changed. There were screams, loud roars, and then silence. Everyone thought the human was dead, eaten, like all others who had tried. But early the next morning, when the sun touched the trees, he returned. The villagers couldn't believe their eyes. The human walked out of the forest. No blood, no wounds, just dirt on his boots and leaves on his jacket. Liari stared from the roof of her home, but something else caught her eye. Behind the human, just at the edge of the trees, two yellow eyes, glowing in the dark. She blinked. A large shape moved behind him, silent, powerful, and watching. It was the razor claw. The human didn't look back. He kept walking. The beast stood still, then slowly turned and disappeared into the trees. What just happened? Why didn't it attack him? How did he survive? The village was full of whispers. Some said he used poison. Others said he had mind powers. But no one knew the truth. The human didn't speak much. He built a small shelter near the edge of the village. He spent time walking near the trees. Sometimes staring into the jungle. Liari became curious. She started watching him from a distance. Every day, he would go near the forest, sit quietly, and wait. Sometimes he would close his eyes, as if listening. And always, the jungle stayed quiet around him. One afternoon, Liari followed him closer than before. She hid behind a rock, holding her breath. The human sat on a log, looking calm. Then, from the trees, it came. The razor claw, huge, black, and deadly. It moved slowly, carefully, like it didn't want to scare him. Liari's heart raced. She wanted to scream, to warn him, but the human didn't move. He looked at the beast, then slowly held out his hand. The razor claw stepped closer, then did something impossible. It lowered its head, and let the human touch it. Liari's eyes went wide. This wasn't a trick. The beast trusted him. The most feared predator on Zil was acting like a pet. She crawled back, her legs shaking. What kind of human was this? How did he do it? Why did the razor claw obey him? She had to find out. She had to talk to him. But deep inside, she felt something more, something dangerous. Because if a human could tame a razor, what else could he control? Liari couldn't sleep. The image of the human touching the razor claw played again and again in her mind. She had seen it with her own eyes. The deadliest predator on the planet bowing its head like a tame creature. It didn't make sense. In the village, everyone still whispered about him. Some said he made a deal with the jungle gods. Others believed he was cursed. One old alien even claimed the human was a ghost, sent to punish the village. But Liari knew. What she saw, it wasn't a trick, it was real, and it was more than just survival. The beast didn't fear. Hammett respected him. The human walked through the village like a shadow, quiet and calm. He didn't join their meals, didn't visit their gatherings. He stayed near the edge of the jungle, always watching, always waiting. Some children threw rocks at his shelter. He ignored them. Liari watched him from rooftops, behind trees, from the market tents. She studied the way he moved, how he listened, how the birds didn't fly away when he passed, even the smaller forest. Animals didn't run from him. One afternoon, she followed him again. The jungle was quiet, thick with mist. He walked deep into the trees and sat on a flat stone. For a long time, nothing happened. Liari crouched behind a bush, careful not to make a sound. Then, slowly, the razor claw came. Its body was larger than she remembered, with long claws that could tear through steel. But its eyes, they weren't angry or wild. They looked calm, focused, even gentle. The human raised a hand, and the beast stopped beside him, like a guard. He said a few soft words Liari couldn't understand, and the razor claw responded not with words, but with a deep growl that didn't sound like a threat. It was like they were talking. Suddenly, the human turned his head. Liari froze. Had he seen her? But he didn't move. He just looked toward her hiding spot and spoke in a calm voice. "You can come out," he said. His Zelleran accent was strange, but clear. Liari stepped out slowly, unsure if the beast would attack. but it didn't. It just watched her with curious eyes. "What do you want?" he asked. His face showed no fear, no anger, only patience. Liari didn't know what to say. She stared at the razor claw, then looked back at him. "You're not scared?" she asked quietly. The human gave a small smile. "No," he said. "Fear makes animals nervous." "What do you call it?" she asked, nodding toward the beast. "I don't call it," he said. "It comes when it wants." Liari stepped closer, still keeping her distance. "You tamed it," she whispered. "No," he said firmly. "I don't tame, I listen." That answer stayed with her all the way back to the village. By the next day, stories began to spread, stories she didn't tell, but someone must have seen them in the forest. They said the human walked with the razor claw beside him, that he fed it with his hand, that it slept near his shelter at night. The elders grew worried. Some wanted the human gone. Danger follows him, they said. He brings wild things too close. But Liari wasn't so sure. She had watched his eyes, his calm, steady movements. There was no hate in him, no greed, no hunger for power, just quiet. She wanted to know more. She wanted to understand what he was doing, how he could touch the jungle without fear, how he could bond with a creature made for death. One night, she crept near his shelter. No fires burned there, only soft lights from small machines. The razor claw lay curled in the shadows like a giant cat. It opened one eye, saw her, and closed it again. She climbed the roof and waited. Inside, the human worked on something small, screens, wires, blinking lights. She couldn't see much, but she heard him speaking softly, recording his voice. "Day 17, he said. "Subject has shown full trust. Eye contact no longer seen as a threat. Bond is stable. Host environment more intelligent than expected." She didn't understand all the words, but she understood enough. This wasn't an accident. This was a test. And her planet might be the lab. She climbed back down and ran into the darkness. Her heart beat faster than ever before. The human was not what he seemed, and the beast beside him might be only the beginning. Asterisk. The next morning, Liari stood at the edge of the jungle. She had not planned to come here. Her legs brought her without permission from her mind. Her thoughts were loud, like a storm. She had seen the human's notes. He was studying the beast, studying her planet, and calling it a subject. Now, the razor claw stood just a few meters ahead, drinking from the stream. Its muscles moved like coiled ropes under black fur. Its claws dug gently into the soil. It knew she was there, but didn't care. And then he appeared, the human, quiet, as always. He stepped beside the beast, like they were equals, not master and pet. He didn't wear armor, just a soft jacket and calm eyes. Liari stepped out. The razor claw raised its head. The human looked at her and said one word. "You followed." His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't surprised either. Just calm, always calm. "You are not just here for the view," he added. Liari felt a tightness in her chest. She nodded slowly. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I'm learning," he said. "I want to understand this place." She pointed at the beast. "You wrote notes. You're studying it like a machine." The human looked at the razor claw, then back at her. "I studied to understand," he said, "not to harm." "Why this planet?" she asked. "Why the razor claw?" He crouched and touched the grass with his fingers. "This planet," he said, "has the clearest bond between fear and nature. This creature," he nodded at the beast, "was born from fear." Liari took a step closer. The razor claw watched her with golden eyes. It didn't growl, didn't move. "You think you can control it?" she asked. "No," he said, shaking his head. "I don't control anything. I just connect." She didn't know what to say. No one had ever said such a thing. On her world, nature was wild, and aliens stayed far from it. "Your people," she said. "They'll come, won't they?" The human was silent for a moment. "Yes," he said, "but I hope they come slowly. I need more time." Liari stepped beside him now, close enough to see his face clearly. He looked tired, older than he had seen before, not weak, heavy, like he carried too much alone. "I'm Liari," she said quietly. He nodded. "Jackson," he replied. Then, without warning, a loud sound cracked through the jungle, a scream sharp, high, full of fear. Both turned, alert. The razor growled low, its body ready. Another scream, this time closer. Then, crashing sounds, running, panic, cries for help. Liara's eyes widened. "It's coming from the village," she said. Jackson didn't wait. He ran, fast and silent. With the razor claw sprinting beside him, Liari followed, her heart pounding in her chest. They reached the village gates within minutes. Smoke rose from a storage hut. Sparks jumped from a broken power box. A large creature, something from deeper jungle, had wandered into the village. It was not the razor claw. It was bigger, slower, but angrier. It smashed crates and walls. Confused by lights and voices, villagers screamed and ran. Guards shot darts, but they bounced off its thick skin. Then Jackson stepped forward. He raised a hand, not to fight, but to signal. The razor claw burst from the trees. Faster than a scream, it leaped at the wild beast, claws flashing, not to kill but to stop. It pushed the other creature back, growling with power, driving it away from the homes. Together, The two predators vanished into the dark trees. Silence returned. Liari stared at the human. "You didn't order it," she said. "No," he answered. Breathing hard, it chose. The villagers stood frozen. Some were thankful, others afraid. No one had ever seen such a thing, an Earthman calling a jungle king like a friend, and for the first time, Liari wondered. Maybe this wasn't about control. Maybe it was something older, deeper, something even her people had forgotten. She looked at Jackson, and she knew. This was only the beginning. Rain fell quietly over the village. It was the kind of rain that made no sound at first, only soaked the ground and filled the air with silence. Everything had changed since that night, since the Razorclaw saved them. Jackson did not speak much after the attack. He returned to his shelter near the jungle. The Razorclaw returned, too, waiting outside like a silent guard. Some villagers treated him like a hero. Others called him a danger in disguise. The elders met in secret, whispering about what to do. No one dared to confront him, not after seeing what followed him in the dark. But Liari couldn't stop thinking about the way Jackson moved, the way the Razorclaw listened, the way he had said, "It chose." That word "chose" held power. And questions. One night, Liari walked through the wet grass, her steps soft. She wore a dark cloak and carried no light. The Razorclaw was not there. Maybe hunting. Maybe watching elsewhere. She crouched near the shelter and found a small open hatch on the side wall. It wasn't locked. That surprised her. Either Jackson trusted everyone, or he thought no one would dare to come near. Inside, it was warm and full of quiet blinking lights. Screens lined the walls, some showing maps, others displaying strange wave patterns. Her eyes moved across the screens, trying to make sense of the human symbols. Most of it she didn't understand, but then she saw a folder labeled Zalora Alpha Trials. She touched the screen, and it opened. Lines of human writing appeared. Day 43. Subject 01 responds to emotional tone. Eye-to-eye contact triggers bonding behavior. Predator hierarchy may be altered through persistent non-hostile engagement. Conclusion. Fear is not the key, trust is. She kept reading. More notes appeared, some about brain patterns, others about neural syncing and chemical mimicry. But then, a new file name appeared. Project Directive Terraform. Alpha. Her hands stopped. She stared at the title, her heart beating faster. She opened the file. There were human voices recorded. One of them was Jackson's, but his voice sounded colder. More official. Zalora hosts high potential biosphere. Native life forms adaptable. If bonding is successful, Earth Command may begin next phase. Population testing. Population testing. Liari backed away, her skin cold despite the warm air. This wasn't just about studying a predator. This was about preparing her planet for something bigger, something dangerous. She turned and bumped into something, not a wall, not a machine, a person. Jackson stood there, in the shadows, watching her. He didn't look angry. He didn't even look surprised. "You found it," he said. His voice was soft, but it felt heavy. Liari took a step back. "You lied," she said. "You came here to test us." Jackson walked slowly to a chair and sat down. His eyes were tired again. "I didn't lie," he said. "I just didn't tell you everything." "Why?" Liari asked. "Because you wouldn't have listened," he said. "No one ever does until it's too late." She stared at him. "There's a file," she said. "A directive. You called this place Terraform Alpha." Jackson nodded. "That's what they called it," he said. "Back on Earth. But not me." Liari didn't speak. She waited. "I was sent here to test if we could bond with predators," Jackson said. "If we could tame them, the way Earth leaders want. But I didn't follow the full mission. I stopped reporting weeks ago." "Why?" she asked. "Because I changed," he said. "The more time I spent with the Razorclaw, the more I saw that this isn't a place to control. It's a place to learn from." He looked at her now, not as a subject, but as someone equal. "I didn't expect to feel this," he said, "but this planet is alive in ways Earth forgot, and I'm not here to break it." Liari didn't know if she could trust him, but she also didn't see lies in his eyes, only regret, and maybe hope. "Will they come?" she asked. Jackson nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "Earth doesn't wait forever. They'll come to see if I succeeded." Liari turned to leave. At the door, she stopped. "You did succeed," she said. "You just didn't follow their idea of success." Then she walked out into the night. The rain had stopped, but something heavier now hung in the air, and far above the clouds, something moved a ship, watching, waiting, and it was getting closer. Asterisk. The stars above Zalora blinked like cold eyes. One of them didn't blink. It moved, slow but steady, growing brighter each night. It was not a star, it was a ship. Liari saw it first while walking near the old watchtower ruins. At first, she thought it was a comet, but comets didn't hum. This did. A quiet vibration in the air, almost like a warning. She ran back to the village and found Jackson sitting near his shelter. The Razorclaw lay beside him, breathing slow. Jackson didn't look up when she approached. He already knew. "They're here," she said. He nodded. "I saw them 2 nights ago," he said softly. "They've been watching." "You didn't tell us." "No," Jackson replied. because I didn't want to cause panic. Liari's hands curled into fists. You should have trusted us. Jackson looked at her then. The look was tired, almost guilty. I didn't come here to lead, he said. I came here to observe. But you changed that, she said. You bonded with the beast. You saved us. You became part of this world. I did, he whispered. And Earth won't like that. Later that night, the sky cracked open. A beam of white light fell onto the forest floor. The Earth's ship descended without sound, like a predator, sleek, black, armored, with long legs that pierced the ground. The village stood silent, frozen in fear. This was no visit. This was a collection. From the ship came 6 humans in silver suits. Their faces were covered, their movements sharp. Not like Jackson. The lead officer stepped forward and scanned the village with a flat, glowing device, then turned to Jackson. Dr. Jackson Ward. The voice said through the helmet, cold and mechanical. You are ordered to return to command. Jackson didn't move. Behind him, the Razorclaw stepped forward with a low growl. You, bonded, the officer said, glancing at the beast. Unexpected, but useful. Liari stepped between them. This isn't a lab, she said. This is our home. The officer ignored her. This predator is to be collected, he said. We need it alive for testing. Jackson's voice was quiet but firm. No, he said, you don't understand. This isn't a test subject, it's a partner. The soldiers raised their weapons. The Razorclaw snarled and took a step forward. Tension filled the air. Like static. Stand down, Jackson said to the beast. It obeyed, but its eyes stayed locked on the soldiers. Liari couldn't believe what she was seeing. Jackson, who once seemed like a silent visitor, now stood as a shield between two worlds, and Earth wanted to take everything away. The officer spoke again. You disobeyed orders. You disconnected. From command, you chose emotion over protocol. I chose respect. Jackson replied. These creatures aren't weapons. They trust us because I trusted them first. The officer signaled the team. Prepare containment. The soldiers moved forward. The Razorclaw crouched low, ready to strike. Jackson stepped between them, arms wide. If you fire it, ends badly for all of us. The officer paused, then spoke to Jackson alone. You were sent to tame monsters. You got too close. Jackson's voice didn't shake. They're not monsters, he said. They're just listening better than we are. In that moment, something cracked. Not the ground, not the sky, but trust. Liari felt it like a cut sharp and deep. Jackson had been one of them, then became one of her people. Now, both sides wanted him to choose, and neither would wait long. The forest had never been so quiet. No birds, no wind, even the leaves refused to move. Liari stood at the edge of the jungle, staring at the Earth ship. Its lights blinked like angry eyes in the dark. Inside, soldiers moved quickly, preparing traps, scanning life signs, loading stun darts. The mission was clear. Take the Razor alive, take Jackson back. End the story. But stories don't end when someone decides. Sometimes, they fight back. Jackson had gone into the forest an hour ago. Alone, he said nothing to Liari before he left. He just looked at her and nodded once. Now, she waited, not sure if she would see him again. From deep in the trees, something moved. A shape, fast and heavy. Then another, and another. 3 Razorclaws. Not 1, 3. Liari's breath caught in her throat. They moved like shadows, silent and perfect. And behind them, Jackson. He walked slowly, eyes calm, face unreadable. The original Razorclaw walked beside him closer than ever before. The 2 others followed carefully. Not tamed, but not wild either. Liari understood it now. Jackson hadn't just bonded with one, he had become part of the pack. At the same moment, the Earthship opened its front doors. 3 soldiers stepped out with electric rifles. They aimed without warning. Stand down. One shouted, this is your final chance. Jackson stopped. The Razorclaw growled low. The jungle behind them whispered with wind, like it was holding its breath. Jackson raised a hand. I won't let you take them, he said. They trust me. And I trust them. You're under Earth. Command, the officer barked. You don't get to choose. Yes, I do, he replied, and so do they. Liari stepped forward, voice clear and strong. You came to tame a predator, she said to the soldiers. But you never thought it might choose peace instead. The lead soldier gave the order. Target the Razorclaw now. But before a shot was fired, something unexpected happened. The Razorclaw stepped between Jackson and the guns. Not to attack, to protect. It stood tall, shoulders tight, eyes bright. It faced the soldiers and let out a roar not wild, not violent, but clear, and filled with meaning. The jungle answered. More sounds came from the trees, more shapes moving, predators watching. From above and below, not attacking, waiting. Liari realized then, Jackson had not controlled the Razorclaw. He had become part of something ancient, older than Earth, older than fear. A bond of survival, respect, and silent choice. One soldier fired. A dart flew through the air fast and sharp, but before it hit Jackson, the Razorclaw moved. It blocked the shot with its body. The dart bounced off its thick skin. It didn't even flinch. Then it looked at the shooter. Not with anger, but with disappointment. The soldier froze, his hands shook, he lowered his weapon. The officer stared at Jackson. "What are you?" he asked. Jackson looked at the jungle around him, then at the razor claw beside him. "I'm not a commander," he said. "I'm just someone who listened." Silence fell again. Even the Earthship dimmed its lights, as if it too had heard something it couldn't understand. Liari stepped beside Jackson. "You're not one of them anymore," she whispered. Jackson didn't answer. He didn't need to. The razor claw made the choice, and by standing still, it changed everything. Asterisk. The sun rose over Xylora with a strange kind of quiet. Not fear, not warning, just peace. For the first time, the jungle didn't sound like a storm waiting to break. Birds returned to the branches. Small animals peeked from their hiding places. Even the trees seemed to breathe easier. At the edge of the village, the razor claw sat beside a tall rock, blinking slowly in the golden light. It wasn't hiding. It wasn't hunting. It was waiting. Jackson sat beside it, silent as always. His eyes were tired, but his shoulders were no longer heavy. Liari watched from a short distance. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Everything had already been said. The Earth soldiers had packed their gear the night before. No more orders, no more traps. Their weapons stayed cold. The officer never gave a farewell. He just stared at Jackson one last time, like he couldn't decide if he'd seen failure or something greater. Then they were gone. The ship vanished into the clouds, leaving no mark behind, only silence, and the choice they could not control. Now, the village stood gathered around Jackson and the beast. No guards, no weapons, just eyes. Confused, changed. The village elder stepped forward. A woman with white eyes and a voice like old wood. She looked at Jackson, then at the razor claw. "We have feared the jungle since the first sunrise," she said. "We taught our children to run from it, to never speak to it." She paused. "But you walked into it, and it walked out with you." Jackson didn't answer. Instead, the razor claw stood. Slowly, with great care, it moved through the crowd, not to threaten, not to hunt, but to be seen. No one ran. Not this time. Children stepped back, but not far. One small boy reached out a hand. The razor claw paused, then lowered its head. A moment passed, then another, and then contact. The boy touched its thick fur, gently, like touching a story. The villagers gasped, and something inside them began to shift. Jackson finally spoke. "I didn't come here to tame," he said. "I came here to learn what we forgot, that life listens, if we speak the right way." Liari stepped beside him. "And if we stop shouting long enough to hear," she added. Jackson smiled faintly. The razor claw let out a soft growl, not a warning, a breath. That night, no one locked their doors. No one watched the forest with fear. They listened instead. The stars above Xylora burned bright. One of them carried a message home, but it would not report a successful weapon test. It would report something stranger, something stronger, a bond. In the weeks that followed, more razor claws came near the village, not as hunters, as watchers, as neighbors. And the people of Xylora began to change, not because they were forced, but because they were finally free to choose. Jackson stayed, not as a guest, but as part of the jungle, and she became the first voice of peace between two worlds. The first to stand between a village and a myth and say, "There is nothing to fear when trust walks beside us." In the end, the jungle never bowed. It simply opened its eyes, and the girl, who once feared its darkness, now walked in the light. Beside the king, asterisk,